where we're going to be sending our papers with the new edition, but I think we're moving forward full steam ahead with Drone Forest.
We'll roll whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you.
5:29.
Yeah, 1 minute. After an hour and a half.
5:29.
I talked to Dorothy later, and she said, put everything out here. One council member.
Good, doing good.
Okay, thank you for that.
Good, how you doing? See you.
Great. Thank you. Oh, never can have enough, not have enough roads working in the city.
Exactly.
You almost had to pick up tardy on this, Mr. Miller.
Come on. You don't have your suit. Thank you. Everybody like.
You better get your stuff.
Oh, it was his. Okay. Good day. Good, all right. Check time. Close enough.
It's 5:30, sir.
AT&T says 5:30.
Yes, sir.
All right, council, let's get started. I'd like to call this council workshop to order. All right, today is December 17th, 2025. The time is 5:30. We're going to dispense with the formalities. So go ahead and move into roll call, Scott.
Yes, sir. Mayor Chris Parr.
Here.
Councilmember Mitch Davis.
Here.
Councilmember David Mullane. Councilmember Jerry Reesner.
Here.
Councilmember Ricky Warwick.
Here.
Councilmember Larry Sanders.
Here.
City Engineer Greg Phipps.
Here.
City Attorney Scott Francis.
Here.
Chief of Police just left. City Secretary Marie Campbell.
Here.
City Administrator is here.
You are here, yes, sir. All right, as I mentioned before, this is a workshop. This is a zoning workshop for discussion purposes. And with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to the city attorney.
All right, well, we could do this a number of ways. I thought, way to start, we can kind of give a 30,000 foot view overview of what my presentation was last time, and kind of go walk us through the purpose, what we can and can't do, and then the process of putting it all into place, and essentially the options that everybody that you as a city have along the way, and we can discuss the pros and cons of each option, and just try to make decisions as best we can, and form a plan of how we want to go to move forward based on some decisions that we might make here tonight. So, if you recall, basic zoning has been around in the country for a little over 100 years. It was adopted by the state of Texas in the late 1920s. The purpose of it is it was the rights of regulating zoning and what activities can be conducted in what specific areas of a given area were designated for the municipality. So it is the city council's right to enact and enforce the zoning laws if they so wish. Always with the purpose to promote public safety, morals, and the general welfare, while protecting and preserving places and areas of historical, cultural, and architectural importance and significance. When the city has a comprehensive plan, like the city of Roman Forest enacted earlier this year, any zoning laws and regulations must adhere to the bounds of that comprehensive plan. So they really work hand in hand together. The comprehensive plan, the council needs to be looking to the comprehensive plan to enact specific zoning regulations based on how those zoning regulations might go, or how the council might feel. That might dictate a need to go back to the comprehensive plan, make changes, then have those changes be reflected in the zoning ordinances that might be later enacted. The first step of the process would be to have that comprehensive plan. The city has done that, so we're now at a point of what we want to do next. And again, we'll get into the weeds of all this, but just giving a 30,000 foot view, really it doesn't necessarily have to be the first step, but I think a good place to start is deciding if there wants to be a creation of a planning and zoning commission. As a general law, city, you don't have the obligation to create a planning and zoning commission. You can create a completely independent planning and zoning commission that would be appointed with who council might feel is best. Another option is that the council can simply act as the planning and zoning commission. There's a lot of benefits to that with a smaller city like Roman Forest. Or you can choose to go forward without a planning and zoning commission, at which point the council would essentially be doing the same items that as the planning and zoning commission would be undertaking. There's also the decision to make of whether there wants to be a board of adjusters. The board of adjusters is essentially a body. It can also be council, or it can be an independent body. But it is essentially the appeal process, the reviewing body for any appeals that citizens might have for certain regulations that they find to be negatively affecting them or believe to be problematic in any way. There are procedures that they could take it up with the board of adjusters. So after that, then essentially some decisions to be made are basically a set of rules and procedures that the city wants to follow in enacting zoning regulations. Typically, you would need to create different zoning districts. Your standard bears for that would be industrial district, residential district, commercial district, and then some kind of mixed use districts based on how the council feels the city would best be addressed. The city's needs would best be addressed.
Scott, those can
Yes.
only be the ones that are already set up in the comprehensive plan, though, correct?
They have to adhere to them. That's correct. Right. And there are set procedures that the law requires, such as specific notice provisions on when a proposed regulation might be enacted, an ordinance enacting a regulation has to be provided a notice. The public has to have the right to come in to make their opinions known. It has to be discussed in a public hearing prior to that. But if the city wants to come up with a set of procedures for essentially workshopping or putting forward ideas for specific zoning laws and regulations, that can be done if the city wants to create a planning and zoning commission, or if it just wants to be the city schedules workshop meetings periodically to discuss zoning laws, discuss new potential zoning laws. From there, once you essentially have kind of established your rules and procedures, you can start enacting a comprehensive zoning ordinance that would essentially establish, okay, these are our zoning districts, and these are the set activities that can take place at each one, and these are the types of properties that might be able to be constructed there. These are whether commercial activity be conducted or if it needs to be purely residential. what have you. Again, all has to follow the comprehensive plan, and once that is kind of a set ordinance that would become part of the city's code of ordinance, it can be shaped and changed, added to, what have you, as we go on. That's, I guess, my kind of general overview for tonight. I kind of want you guys to be able to dictate a little bit of how you want things to go, but I think a good place to start would be to discuss how, basically, if you want a planning and zoning commission, or if you want to forego that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably step one. Are we going to act as the commission, or are we going to elect a committee? Yes, sir, Councilman.
What's the pros and cons of each one? Because I know if we act as our own arbitrators, council changes, new people coming in may not be up to speed or have a steep learning curve of what we're learning here now versus a board of adjusters. Is that what you're calling?
The Board of Adjusters is the second body. That's more of the reviewing appeal process. The Planning and Zoning Commission is more of the, we'll say it's like more of the legislative side of it, whereas the Board of Adjusters would be more of a judicial side of it.
Say that again?
The Planning and Zoning Commission would be more coming up with the ideas for zoning regulations, putting it forward to council for enactment. They're at the beginning stages, and then the Board of Adjuster will be coming later if there's any complaints from citizens, or if the citizen is found to be in violation, believe that it was incorrect, or that there's an issue with the law, they can come to the Board of Adjusters as essentially an appeal process.
I'm sorry, it's lots of taking.
No, I know, and that's what we're here. That's what we're here for.
What power does, well, let's go, and I have some questions on Board of Adjusters, but let's go back. So the Planning and Zoning Commission is the people that put forward the ideas. So do we want to act as that commission, or do we want to appoint volunteer citizens to do that?
Are there any negatives to having the zoning, Scott?
To having
The zoning, right, we set up the board, whether the council does it or we appoint other independent members. Is there any negative or unintended consequences that we're not thinking of creating the zoning?
you know,
Right now, we have deed restrictions, that what's in green up there is what is allowed to be unrestricted or reserves, what's on the maps. So we have something similar, we have some restrictions. It's not zoning, it's not saying it can be industrial, or it can be retail, or it can be multifamily, it can be anything. But we do have some restrictions right now. Are there any unintended consequences of creating the zoning that we may not be thinking of if we say some of that green can be multifamily and some of that can only be retail, and maybe we don't have any industrial at all? Then what are we can obviously go back and revise an ordinance and add a district that we don't currently have if it comes to that. Say we end up annexing the old golf course area, and Tim had talked about wanting to bring in an industrial park, Tim Underwood, previous administrator. If for some reason we wanted to do that in the future, there are means to do that. But is there any negatives that we're not thinking about of creating the zoning, other than having another board and another regulatory body that we would need to have meetings for, and creating a bureaucracy?
I just want to clarify, when you say are there negatives to creating the zoning, do you mean are there negatives to creating a whole body of zoning regulations?
That's correct. If going forward with zoning, are there any negatives to actually moving forward with zoning as opposed to just leaving it as we have it?
From a legal perspective, I mean it makes it more streamlined. You can enact laws piecemeal. You can say we don't like this, we don't like that, and so long as it is in line with your comprehensive plan, you're legally sound. Okay. Organizationally speaking, there might be certain negatives to creating the zoning board, and that it does make things a little bit complicated, and having the entire body and having a separate board that's separate from council makes things more bureaucratic, as the way it will go with a separate zoning, planning and zoning board is planning and zoning will meet once a month, however often they intend to meet. It does need to be a public meeting subject to the Texas Open Meeting Act, and they don't, all the planning and zoning board can do is make recommendations. So during those meetings, they are essentially coming up with ideas. It's a workshop meeting more or less, that then they present to city council. City council has the ultimate authority to take their recommendations or deny them.
So
It's just an extra step.
once the zoning board is created, they come up with these zoning ordinances, those are adopted. Do they have to meet at all unless there's a reason to meet, they're gonna change something? The question behind the question is, right now, we have a monthly city council meeting, and if
Mhm.
we act as the zoning board,
Mhm.
are we setting ourselves up to having 2 meetings a month, one for zoning and one for city council,
The-
that we have to do? Or can we just say, we're going to meet annually, once a year, just to say we're going forward as is, or somebody wants to propose a change, but we don't have to meet on a regular basis if there's not a reason to?
That is part of the city gets a little bit of flexibility in all of this, is you can come up with your rules and procedures, how you want it to go. There are some cities that I know of that do have a standing once a month planning and zoning commission all the time, regardless, and it's a totally separate body. They, a lot of times, they're reviewing plat applications, more or less. That's the purpose of it a lot. Some cities have a large need for that because they might have a lot of these kind of activities that come through, so they really need a separate board to be, they might be having 5 to 10 plats every single month that they're having to look at. Again, they don't have authority, they take votes on whether they want to approve plats or if they want to make a change. All of that simply goes to council. Council makes the ultimate decision on if something's actually approved or if an ordinance actually goes forward. So if the city wants to create a separate zoning and planning commission, you can create a set of procedures of, we meet every other month, we meet 3 times a year, 4 times a year. There can be procedures for, we have this for calling meetings outside of the set times because something needs to be discussed, or we were charged by council to come up with a new regulation to address a certain issue. You can have flexibility in it, but if there's nothing to, if let's say you have a set once a month meeting and there's really nothing to discuss in your January meeting, and the board decides, well, there's no point in meeting, then it's just, there's not a quorum and it doesn't go forward. There's not a specific legal negative consequence to the board didn't meet on this particular time, even though the city rules and procedures said that they meet once a month. So, I'm not here to say, to give you guys advice on how you want the city to run. Legally speaking, I don't see, there's not necessarily a negative to creating a completely separate zoning and planning commission, other than it adds a bureaucratic step that sometimes cities see as unnecessary, especially when ultimately the council is going to be the ones that are the driving force.
And the members may or may not align with the intent of the council.
If I might interject, the problem with this is we moved out here because we were kind of a laid-back neighborhood, and this just reeks of Big Brother. I'm sorry. That's the way from what I understand so far, that's where I see this. We had a comprehensive plan. It was my understanding we could absorb, take what we wanted or not. That's why I voted for it. all at once seems that part of our comprehensive plan is now mandatory, the way I interpret this. And that's not what I voted for when I voted for that. And the other thing we have to remember is we have businesses coming out here, and when you get into too much zoning all at once, we have to make a determination, we're gonna be business friendly or not business friendly. If we ever get to the place where we get some income out of this because of sales tax, and who knows if that'll ever happen, but at least they'll have more tax base out of a business than you will a home, so there is some income there. So I've got some serious concerns about this whole process.
And with that being said, Councilman, you're absolutely right. My opinion is the citizens of this city elected us to make these decisions. I don't see the need to appoint a separate committee. You see, it adds bureaucracy, it adds steps to this that I don't think we need. And the same thing goes for the Board of Adjusters. I don't see the need to appoint a separate Board of Adjusters because from what I understand, the only power they have is to make recommendations to council.
Right.
We can hear any arguments or disputes, and we can make those decisions without having a middle person bringing those.
It's more or less spreading the workload, which is not,
Yeah.
which is necessary for some cities, unnecessary for others. And
Yes,
it's-
just give me one moment. And to answer some of your questions, Jerry, I'm with you. I don't want to see us be business unfriendly. However, we need to get some rules in place because as Galaxy comes from 99 behind our city, and that's going to happen, that's going to bring a lot more through here, a lot more traffic through here, and a lot more need, a lot more businesses will come in here because of that. We really need to get out in front of this. Not looking to keep businesses out, I'm looking to regulate the type of businesses that we have here and the type of clientele that they draw. That's my
Yeah, I don't have
take.
a problem with that, but as we do these things, we need to make decisions
Yeah.
that people will want to come in here rather than put their store on the other side of the Roman forest borderline.
And I agree on it. So, but that being said, that's why I feel like we need to serve in both capacities here. We need to be the zoning planning committee, and we also need to be the Board of Adjusters. Go ahead, Council.
So to that point, if we act as the zoning board, the council, and we act as the Board of Adjusters as the council, do we need to have a separate meeting? Or can we tag that on to any given city council meeting on the agenda? We just say, just like the executive session, that we're gonna go into a zoning meeting at number 11 on the council for as long as it takes, and then we're gonna come back out to the council meeting so that if somebody does have a variance or an appeal or a concern, we can do that as the zoning board, but also be the council members and not have to have a separate meeting with a separate notice that it'll be part of the agenda.
It can be a part of the agenda, yes, absolutely. Now, you do still have to comply with 30-day notice requirements if a zoning regulation is being put forward.
Okay.
It can't be put forward at one meeting where an item is consider like a potentially enacting this regulation in these commercial zones.
But that only
And then you
applies
talk
to-
about it, you can't actually make a decision on it that night, it
We
has
can
to be,
put it on there to discuss, but not to enact. So we couldn't take
it could be
action on it.
discussed, absolutely.
Right, so if we decide to take action on it, then we have to give 30 days notice for the next meeting.
Well, you'd have to give 30 days notice for for a public hearing
Okay.
on that specific topic. So if a
So it'd take
topic
2 meetings then.
is considered in one meeting, but it hadn't been given 30 days notice, you can talk about it, you can discuss pros and cons on it, maybe it's something that's tangentially related to something else. But if you actually want to put an ordinance in place that's going to be voted on and passed, you have to have a 30 days notice, allow the public to come there, conduct a public hearing, hear public comments, discuss, and then you can make your decision.
But it can stay on our regular, it could be on our regular agenda for each monthly meeting to be discussed to see if any notices of a public hearing need to be made.
Sure, and that doesn't need to be,
Yeah.
so the other thing is, you wouldn't necessarily have to segment it in, this is a separate meeting that's taking place within the
It
meeting.
could be with part of.
The other, it's not a, the planning and zoning commission meetings are public. They have to be open
So
to
would
the
you
public anyway,
recess
so.
your regular meeting?
No.
go into
You
that
don't have
meeting and
to.
then back to your council meeting?
Just if the council, if there's no board, there's no planning and zoning commission, the council is the governing body that makes the planning and zoning decisions. So it would be appropriate in a regular city council meeting to discuss pros and cons of something going on.
But the only decisions you would be making, if it's on if it's on my agenda every month, the only decisions we would be making are, something's came up, we need to have a public hearing, we need to meet in a workshop to discuss. That's the only decisions we'd be making. We wouldn't be making the decisions on actual ordinances being.
Right, it'd be like your
Yeah.
executive session, you say,
Yeah.
is there a need for a discussion in the zoning commission, and are there any topics for zoning? And if the answer is no, then we move on.
We can move on
and
past it.
discuss it.
I mean,
We don't
again,
vote on it.
that part of, if that
Yeah.
wants to be kind of a set procedure that the city enacts, that's part of how you guys want to operate.
And if I can, a completely separate question, I'd just like to hear Mr. Reesner's concerns. You said big brotherish, and I'd just like to understand what your concerns are for the zoning separate than what we already have in the deed restrictions. If what we're saying is, these are deed restricted, unrestricted, but we're gonna say they can't be more than 2 stories, multifamily can't have more than 24 units or something, right? What we don't want is a condo going up, not that it's likely, but that's what the zoning prohibits, right? If we don't want tattoo and tobacco and cannabis shops, right? We're gonna say that you can't have anything related to cannabis or tobacco sales within X feet of something. Or, I don't know if we can prohibit them altogether, or if that's a taking and you can't do that, then we want to restrict where they can be.
Well, we've gone today, we have nothing, and we really need something we put in place. I agree with the mayor on that.
Right.
But what we gotta be careful of is every time somebody wants to do something, that they don't have to come back and battle with the board, if you would, because somebody on the board don't like it. I mean, Big Brother, we see that, Houston is very bad about Big Brother kind of stuff.
And I don't think the zoning allows you to do that, right? We can't say you can't have a liquor store. We can say you can only have a liquor store in these areas of town, right? We can't say you can't have signage, but we have signage ordinance, and we can say the lights can't be over a certain lumens, or they can't be on after a certain time, or they can't be bigger than whatever, so we don't have the issue ahead of the liquor store with the parking lot, right? And part of that could be in our current lighting ordinance, and part of it could be in zoning.
Yes. Councilman Sanders, sorry.
My understanding, if we are acting as zoning in a public, in a council meeting, and then we're adjourned, not basically adjourned, but we have an item number 11, like you said,
Or whatever, yeah.
that would be the zoning, then all of a sudden we could turn the council meeting into a public meeting.
No, we're not. We're only making a decision. It's on there every month so that we can make a decision
Yeah, but
to call a public meeting.
But the public meeting, is public meeting gonna be at the council, or is it gonna be separate from the council?
We can't, we have to give notice for a public
He
meeting.
said that if they want to make a decision, that's when he said we'll give a 30-day notice for a public hearing.
And we've done that for certain things
It's
already.
15
where we
days,
have
sorry.
a 30-minute,
Right, 15 days, I
15 days,
misspoke.
right.
well, we've done that,
Well,
we
we
did
did
a
the weeds on
30-minute
the
town
actual
hall before
details.
the council meeting before.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
So if we decide, and Mitchell hit on it, if we decide to do it with the council, which I think both y'all, that's a great idea because it's more bureaucracy, can somebody come along and say, hey, I wanna lay this off council and get a board of adjusters, so to speak, later? You know, and say another council adds that later.
So can we add it, is what you're asking?
Can,
aren't
is
you?
it possible, or are we stuck in this model?
I mean, just like any other ordinance, you'll have to overturn the ordinance that created
I got you.
So we can
what
amend
you
the
have, and then say, we're now saying we're designating a separate planning and zoning commission, so.
I think that's what Mitchell Davis is hitting now, I think it's a good guy. We can't control what comes in here, but we can control where it goes.
We can, and yes, we can, absolutely. We can control where it goes, how far from the church or school that it is, and a lot of things. There's a lot of things we can do.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I don't-
Zoning is very much about, we want to put this in this area this area, there's a lot of residents, even if there might be a business, it's a mixed kind of use zone, so we want to say you can't have giant lights because there's people's houses that are a block, two
Can we
doors down.
prohibit certain business coming here?
Not through zoning. I mean, zoning is about, they need to be, you can regulate them. That is a big part of what zoning is. It's really regulation. It's not necessarily prohibitive laws of saying there can be no liquor stores in the city of Roman Forest. That wouldn't really be zoning. There
But
can
we
be,
could set distances from parks and
Absolutely.
playgrounds and churches and schools. So like,
You can s-
as a for instance, had we done this earlier and we said you couldn't be within 1,000 feet of a park, then you couldn't have the one when you come across
If
the
zoning
bridge.
would have been in place.
You could have the one on Appian, you could have the one back at Galaxy.
And the reason why I was asking, because in Texas, there was an organization about 3 years ago that was trying to get all cities, they contacted this city, if I'm not mistaken, outlawing abortion clinics in cities, smaller cities, and then somehow through the law of Texas, you could say, okay, the small city of Roman Forest will not allow abortion clinics to come into it. They got hundreds of cities that signed up,
Mhm.
and they're just reaching out to all.
Well, that really comes down, that's more of a different kind of laws that your city can enact. I mean, as a general law city, you can essentially, you have to follow the statutes of the state of Texas. So you can enact your laws and ordinances so long as they're not coming into conflict with what the statute, so long as you have authority to do it under the Texas statutes and you're not contradicting anything that's already part of the Texas statutes. So there might be, in certain cases like that, it might be coming down from state issues, state
Right.
enactments and those items and the like.
Thank you.
But-
Councilman Warwick, I know you got some questions. Not yet? Not yet?
I will.
So we need to decide whether we're gonna have a separate planning committee.
Mhm.
We need to decide whether we're gonna have a board of adjusters other than the council.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then it seemed, and then kind of set, once you kind of make that decision, zoning and planning board or council's gonna do it, then you start, and the same thing with the board of adjusters. Once you kind of have like, this is what our inventory, so this is kind of how our structure is going to be,
Mhm.
then I think the next step is to start thinking about how do we want to go about, what are some rules and procedures we want to do. So
So
do we
is it-
want to have a standing item 11 on every meeting? We consider
Okay.
potential
Gotcha.
items. Is that how we want things to be brought
Right.
up? To which point we then say, okay, that seems like an interesting idea. Let's see a ordinance drafted up, and then we'll do the proper notice as is required, and we'll have the public hearing at the later date. But basically, you can have that where you have a certain time where you always want to be discussing that, or if you want to have a separate date to have a special meeting where the council is essentially only discussing zoning and planning items, you can do that as well. Again, that's part of how you want it to go, and then how new rules and regulations will be discussed. How often do you want to discuss potentially changing zones, regulations, and when it might be time for a new comprehensive plan, and how it might want to look.
So we gotta pick one of these two before we take a path that they can take us to.
And it's a good, again, the council could start trying to enact zoning laws in January, potentially, if they wanted to. It's good to try to let's have a set of rules and procedures of how we want to start going about doing it. You guys you have a comprehensive plan, if you want to set, if somebody has an idea and there's enough time to do it, say by the 4th Monday of January, we want to hold a public hearing on this, and that. We don't have a planning and zoning board, but we're the governing body, so we're putting this forward as a list, a little thing that we want to see if we can pass in January, and then in February, we think we want to establish a planning and zoning commission and a board of adjusters. You can do that as
You
well.
can do that, okay, so, yeah.
A couple of, Maureen, can you pull up the comprehensive plan map behind that one? And then scroll over to the right to where it has the districts, I think is where they're.
There?
So
Yeah.
that's what the districts are, the land use categories. That's what's existing, but I think that's what we're tied to right now in the comprehensive plan. So if there are other things we want to add or amend from that, we need to have that as one of our action items. And then two, to get us kind of kicked off, Scott, if we're assuming we're moving forward with the zoning, assuming that we're moving forward with the council acting as that zoning board, then does either the Houston Galveston Area Council or the Texas Municipal League, or do you represent other cities that are in our size and situation that we can get a draft of zoning ordinances so we're not starting from scratch?
I should have brought more than one copy.
So-
I brought a sample.
Will you just leave that with?
Yeah. This is really an ordinance that's amending a set of zoning laws, but it would give you an idea of what it would essentially look
So I
like.
would assume in there we could have things
Okay.
like a structure can't be over X feet tall, because
Right.
currently that's not in our deed restrictions, if I'm not mistaken, David. I don't think anything restricts how tall a home or a business can be, right? So originally, when the Woodlands was created, nothing could be taller than, I don't remember what it was, 30 feet. It couldn't be taller than the pine trees,
Right.
right? They did away with that when Anadarko came in and put in the 60-story tower, right? Because they didn't want to turn away the oil money. But maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we want to say nothing can be taller than 2 stories or 3 stories or whatever it is.
And the only, and that's where I can kind of come in and where your staff plays a lot of role too, is you have to make sure that you are, what you are establishing, one, you are needing to make sure that it doesn't conflict with any state statute that says you can't restrict something to this level. But so long as you have authority to be doing that, you just need to make sure that whatever you are enacting, it is uniform per the established zone. You're not saying, well, the north end of the zone gets 10 feet, the south end of the zone gets only 8 feet or
But I'm
something
assuming
like that.
everything existing is grandfathered in. So if we say businesses have to comply with the residential requirement for 51% brick,
Mhm.
then we don't say the existing businesses have to be 51% brick, but anything going forward does.
Right, they can get grandfathered in, now the term is escaping me, but essentially they're like a non-compliant, it's a lawfully non-compliant.
But if they do a renovation more than 50% of the value, then they have to
Then
bring
they
it into
need to.
code, just like they do, bring it into regulation.
Out of curiosity, how many lots are you talking about in Roman Forest?
So can you go back to the other map, Maureen? So if you look up there, the ones that are colored in green, Jerry,
So what, we have a feel for the number, is it 50 lots or 100
it's
lots?
more than, well,
Quite a few.
so some of those are reserves, but the unrestricted lots are largely on Roman Forest and Appian, except for the ones on Fountain View are unrestricted, and the ones up there in section 4 near Shrek are unrestricted. So in theory, those could become townhomes, they could become a smoke shop, they could become a car dealership, right? They could become anything.
But that's what I was wondering, if we have a number, we can just out of curiosity.
I've not counted them, but there's probably about 100 total on Appian, Roman Forest, and then the smaller ones dispersed.
So probably not more than 150.
I wouldn't think more than that. Wouldn't take long to count them, but I don't know off the top of my head. It's on that little map right in front of you.
Yeah, I got 25 in that one little block, so I'm thinking you're probably close to 150.
And we may want to change, say, Roman Forest to strictly residential, other than a few areas like at intersections or something to be commercial there, right? So that we don't have all of Roman Forest becoming commercial where it looks like Highway 6 or 1960.
I think
Right.
you get a point that Mitch made, that under these unrestricted lots, we can't come in there and put restrictions on them even if we have zoning.
I think we can.
Unrestricted, or can we?
I think that's exactly what the zoning does, is it says that now we are changing that from unrestricted to this entire section is now zoned residential. You have a chance to appeal it, right? You can come in and say, I own that, and I intended to do this.
Right.
And we have this right to say, yes, we agree, or no, we're still changing it to strictly residential, because you haven't built on it, you've missed that
So
window.
if it's been built on, no.
Okay.
We can't make them tear down and move.
Right, you
No,
can't take it
you
from
have
them,
some people come in and say, well, I got an unrestricted lot, I can do what I want to.
not anymore.
Okay, good, that's what I was getting at.
And
is
well, part
that-
of,
Go ahead. I'm
sorry,
sorry.
well, part of the notice requirement is for when you're enacting, okay, you are these unrestricted lots, you're now part of this specific zone that has these specific regulations or proposed regulations that we're going to put forward in a public hearing. You need to, not only need to give a 15-day notice as just the same as you do like publish on your website the way you would a city council meeting, for any lots that are affected. I believe any lots within, I believe it's 200 feet of an area that would be affected, you actually have to give written delivery notice to those specific homeowners.
But I'm just
So
saying
they
that
have the
will come up.
opportunity.
That will come up, people go, you know, my whole way went down because it's unrestricted, now you're restricted.
And that's why the
No,
law
we're gonna-
gives,
we're
you have to
gonna-
have very specific notice to those
We will
people.
deal with that, I agree.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Fortunately, most of them that are unrestricted, they're outside of Roman Forest Boulevard and Appian are built residential now.
Right.
So they could say, well, I had the right to put anything on there. True, but you haven't.
Right, once we.
So-
And you don't now.
Right.
Okay.
And we're taking that right from you to preserve the value of your neighbors as well as the neighborhood as a whole.
Love it. Now, how about the lots where initially beginning, we had your restrictive covenants for all these lots that defined? At what point do the two of these, and this may be a question for Scott, at what point do the two of these conflict? Because we're saying on the original covenants, you can do anything with this lot, and then we come back and say, no, you can't. And so now we got an issue of,
The zoning override deed restrictions.
It would, but it could be a situation where they are grandfathered in and considered like a lawfully non-conforming lot. It depends, that situation.
But that's where they're pre-existing, right? That's not going forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is in the future, you cannot do something on it, but if it's already there, we can't tell you you can't.
So yeah, so essentially in a situation where the deed does run with the land, the covenant runs with the land, and the future, there's an empty lot that has a certain covenant that says A, and the city has passed a zoning regulation that says you have to do B, then yes, that would override the covenant that's part of the deed if nothing had been done with that. So the deed might say, or the covenant might say you have to do A, but since then, the city has established this zone, you're zoned to this area which requires privacy of the following.
that's always been kind of a question. We have several sections with very finite restrictions on what you can and what you can't do in the lots. And at what point in time does the city override what was originally, people originally bought homes and lots?
There can be variances granted. I'll have to check on this. It wasn't something I looked at specifically, but I don't believe that you can treat members of the same zone that are subject to some kind of restrictive covenant differently then other members of the exact same zone saying, well, everybody in this area, they get a pass on what everything that everybody else in the zone has to do because they have a restricted covenant.
Well, the point being is, in the same statement, there's also a paragraph dealing with, if you want to make changes to anything that's within that covenant for that section, you have to go back to a company that don't exist anymore. And somebody took over that company, and I've never been able to find out who is actually in charge of that. But if you read that whole thing through, we might be restricted in some cases if somebody takes us to court on that. We may be restricted in some cases because there was nobody to make the final approval.
I have no doubt when a situation comes up, we're not prepared for like that, we'll have to be addressed later.
Yeah, we're gonna have to probably, yeah, no, you're right, we're going to have.
And just something we need to, I thought I'd bring up because
Yeah.
It's a learning curve for everybody.
Yes, it is.
And by the way, I was going to ask you, you never did give us a copy of that last presentation you presented.
I did not.
Think we can get that?
Sorry?
Think we can get that?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Did you want some water? Oh, are you done? It's on.
Have you ever done one of these before?
No, I haven't been there from the ground up like this, so this is pretty exciting here too. I've worked with zoning where there's already been a set established zoning procedures and zones and everything, but actually
Well, learn
trying to
together,
start from
huh?
the ground up.
Mhm.
That's right.
Okay, step, next step.
Dr. Reed?
Well, once you guys have decisions on your boards, your
We can't take a
commissions,
vote here, right?
We can't take a
do
vote
that in
here.
council. We can discuss it.
but we don't, if the decision is essentially, we don't think we want a planning and zoning board, you don't have to make an official act to say we don't want it. You can essentially just start.
But if we do, can we do like a show of hands here and we can have agreement? We can't do anything until we
It
have an
can't be
actual
voted
vote.
on until.
No, we can't do that. Only thing we can do here is set our next meeting.
It's a lot to think about.
So I suppose another, and everybody's probably chomping at the bit and wants to get going, but you will need to make some actual vote on some, decisions on your set rules and procedures of how you want things to go. That would probably be the next meeting. Okay, we discussed everything, let's vote on how we want it to be, how do we want a set item for every meeting that we're gonna discuss zoning issues.
Right.
How often do we want to meet, and go forward, and then I think the next step is, and it can be discussed now, if we want to get into the specific details of what do we want for each zone, that can also be discussed here in this meeting. Again, we can't vote on it, and likely, because of the 30-day notice requirement, it would be difficult to try to do all the voting of whether you're gonna have a special commissioner or a planning and zoning commission, and actually enact your set of zoning ordinances all in the same meeting. It might be.
It's kind of overwhelming right now.
Right, I think,
It's a little
let's
bit,
try
yeah.
to do it a little
So,
step at a
When you come
time.
back.
here's what I'm thinking, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilman.
When you come back with the next meeting we have, how we're going to do our procedures, is there any way you can give us a copy, maybe how other people do it, so we can get kind of Mr. Sanders said that or Mr. Davis said, we're not going to start from scratch,
Absolutely, and
And learn from others is always.
I mean, a lot of good that this does here is, do we want to put forward, I could be, kind of getting some of these ideas down of, okay, somebody's put forward the idea of having a item on every meeting to discuss these things.
Right.
Okay, so that.
In case a decision to have a meeting needs to be made, that's,
Mhm.
or,
I think that
Yeah.
would be put at the very end. of your agenda every month.
Yeah,
It may be a
ahead of
different
your
number
closed
every
session.
time, but not in the middle, not at the top.
Yeah.
At the very end, be the last thing you talk about.
And if there's nothing to be discussed, it's nothing to be discussed. Yeah.
Yeah, this is-
But- I
But
represent a meeting.
I also see a need to go ahead and make a plan to vote on the creation or non-creation of those two committees, to set a meeting schedule for the actual zoning meetings. I think it needs to be a scheduled, whether that's every 3 months, every 2 months, I don't care. But it needs to be scheduled because we need to commit to that. This is something we've waited to do for a long time, and I'm ready to move forward on this. I can't wait to start marking this up.
Right.
And I know you guys can't either. So I think first meeting, we need to put some ground rules in place of how this is gonna go, right?
Absolutely, yeah, I think we can do that, and I can certainly get a kind of set sample that's based on other rules and procedures that I've seen, and anything that we want to brainstorm here of this, we think this might be a good way of doing things.
Right?
So one thing, if I may,
Sure, yeah.
what you may want to do, just a suggestion, because their P and Z meetings are just so much fun. Go to one that is a standalone planning and zoning committee
Okay.
and their meetings that I'm dealing with the city of Montgomery right now.
All right.
All the plating and everything goes there, and then go to one that the council
Okay.
does it, and see the difference, because there are huge differences in how those meetings are done.
Could you give us your perspective on that?
Can you weigh them out for us?
Well, I mean, the good thing here is you don't have a lot of vacant land. So your zoning is pretty set. It's minimal. Like the city of Montgomery has a lot of undeveloped land. It's on two major intersections of roads. Very bureaucratic, to say the least, on it. And then I've gone to others that inside council in it. Like this, it's very similar to what you do with the variance. You listen to them, you go through this, and there is no, the decisions, the upside is the decisions you're getting that night.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing a meeting on the first Tuesday of the month, and then council meets on the second and the fourth Tuesday, but you've got to have your stuff in 10 days prior, so you can't, in some cases, it takes you 2 months just to get through it. Where if you're in a council, it's much more streamlined, so
So that's a positive.
it's a positive
Okay.
on the way you guys are talking about doing it.
Okay. But I'd still like to go to one of those meetings.
I think it's where you've got a public hearing and
Mhm.
especially the plats aren't that big of a deal. It's a request to change the zoning
Mhm.
can get pretty contentious,
I
to
bet.
say the least.
I'd like to go with you.
Yeah, no, that would be interesting to go see, just to get a feel of how this is going to unravel, not unravel, how it is gonna pan out. Yeah, no, that's a good
Mayor, if he's correct, from what I understand how he said it, it's more like a variance, but that variance be just specific to that and not set precedents for everyone else, you know what I'm saying, like we do now?
I think it's on an individual basis, probably.
The
If they're-
variance is on
if they're-
property, it's not on a.
Yeah, it's on the property, so.
So like.
And again, you start running into trouble if you're essentially trying to create a variance for a whole subset of property owners that are within a certain zone that are being treated differently than the other.
Okay, yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah, actually, that would create some issues, so.
Wow. That's a lot to take in.
It is a lot.
And Jerry, when you were saying earlier that we might get some tax revenue from these existing businesses coming in, probably never gonna happen.
It's never gonna
I've
happen.
worked with them, said long enough, they had to get a countywide vote for take, city's tax money to give to East Montgomery County Improvement District.
Yeah.
So if Roman Forest wanted to opt out, everybody in the county would have to vote on that.
Vote on it, to vote to let us have our sales tax money.
Well, in reality, that, like you said, that'll probably never happen, but if you take a business, that business is evaluated more than the average house in most cases. which says that they're gonna be paying more in property tax
Yes.
than the average house. So that is an increase, I guess through the back door, if you would, that is an increase in revenue for the city.
Yes.
It is.
I think we
Absolutely.
gotta try
Try what?
get tax back over here.
And we can do that, and that's a discussion for another time. But yeah, we can start that process. It is a process. Before it even goes to a countywide vote, it's a process. I know, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Even if it's 1% or whatever.
Yeah, but I know people in this county are greedy. They say, if I have to pay it, you're going to have to pay it. This is, they are.
It's just a matter of moving the money from one thing. Anyway, not for this workshop. Do you guys want to set a special meeting for the next zoning? Are we ready to have something that comes to the next regular meeting that we can move forward on?
Well, I think what we can do is I can draft a set of rules and procedures.
Okay.
And if anybody wants to email suggestions or what have you, I can kind of put together a kind of an amalgamation of everybody kind of input, and there we can make a decision on it, enacting those rules and procedures, have a specific item on voting to whether they'll be creating a board of adjusters or a planning and zoning commission.
Okay.
If the answer to that is no for both of them, then if we have the rules and procedures in place, the next thing can be to start getting into brass tacks and saying we want to have a specific meeting to discuss what are each zone, what are the rules and regulations of each zone, thinking of things like setbacks, height, lighting, noise, all those kind of things.
Get into the actual details.
Now, this can also be discussed here. We have a very broad zoning workshop, so if we want to kind of get a broad outline of what kind of zones everybody's thinking about, suggestions, and what we can think, ideas of what should go where. There's no issue,
Yeah.
It's okay to discuss that now, even though we haven't set forward a set of procedures.
So my question, and I apologize, I've got to leave in 4 minutes because I've got another place I got to go. So I'm
Yeah, I
going
really
to
want to read this first.
I'm gonna leave the meeting with Mitch. What do we need to do at the January meeting? Is there anything we need to do? We're not gonna be ready to hand you a list of our ideas on zones.
Right, and that's fine, I'm not saying you need to, you're behind the eight ball, I'm just saying, if anybody has ideas, they can certainly put them forward.
Sure, so what do we need to do at our regular January meeting to move forward with? Do we need to establish that we are the planning? Do we need to establish that we are the review board? What do we need?
Yes, I think, we should have essentially 3 items.
Okay,
First, decide if we want to create a separate planning and zoning commission, or if the council is going to act as the commission. Item 2, same thing for the board of adjusters.
okay,
And then item 3, consider and take action on a proposed set of rules and procedures.
which you are going to send
Which
for
I'll-
us to kind of dissect.
Yeah, but we can't take action on the procedures until we give 15 days notice and have a public hearing.
For the actual that's just setting the rules and regulations of the rules and procedures
gonna
of how you're gonna start
Okay.
making.
Procedures.
So
are how
once
we're
you
gonna meet.
start
Yeah.
making them, yes, that requirement is for actual zoning laws you're going to enact.
Mayor, I think you wrapped this up a lot. You can wrap it up. I think that's a lot to take in.
No, this is a lot. I'm really looking forward to doing some research, taking a look at this map, looking at what other cities are doing or have done. Yeah, new territory.
So yeah, so what we can all do, my assignment will be to send you guys all my slideshow. And you all, if you have ideas for rules, sets of rules of procedure, you can send them to me if you want to send them to Scott, or if you want to send them to the mayor.
Why don't you send them all
However.
to me and I'll send them to Scott.
All goes to Mr. Customary.
And Scott, what are the rules on the notice? Are they the same rules as we're applying for a council meeting, or are they?
No,
the calendar
it is a
days change?
15-day, so again, not for the rules of procedure, that is just your regular,
For a meeting, though, you're
That's
saying
just-
15 days, is it 15 calendar days or 15 work days?
I think he's saying only if we're enacting an ordinance or changing an ordinance affecting the zoning.
Right.
right, so yeah, okay. So if
So when we do
So
that,
if the governing body is just going to be making all the decisions, there's not going to be a separate planning and zoning commission. And there is a proposed ordinance, new regulation. It needs to be the fact that the council will be conducting a public hearing on a regularly scheduled meeting. Let's say you got everything together and it's March, you guys are ready to set everything forward. You can consider that regular council meeting as your public hearing. You can't just do the regular 3 days for that specific item. You have to give public notice 15 days in advance of the March hearing that a zoning ordinance will be discussed at a public hearing. So for that specific item, there needs to be 15 days,
calendar or work?
15 calendar.
And then
And
calendar.
it's
Can we-
published, is it not? It's not just posted.
And so there's two things. It has to, you put it on your, where you would post the notice for your regular meetings. You would also post it up here and on your internet website.
Yes.
That's the notice of the public hearing to everybody. There's also a requirement for a general law city that does not have a planning and zoning commission to give written notice within 10 days prior to at least 10 days prior to the public hearing, to any property owner that is within 200 feet of the affected area. So it's a separate notice requirement that isn't just posted. You have to actually you have to send them notice that a
That's
public
only when
hearing
you're
is
getting
going to
into the,
These are all different. Again, the rules and procedures don't have that. That's just your regular item of we're going to
Mayor, you gotta-
discuss, consider, and potentially enact the rules and procedures for how the city is going to conduct zoning activity decisions. Once that's all set up and it's time to say, yes, we're going to have laws, we're going to have the whole complete law
Excuse me, Scott.
and then any subsequent ones.
Can you finish that discussion with Scott in his office afterward? We go ahead and close this
Are
meeting.
y'all ready to close? I'm sorry, I'm not.
We're ready to
rushing
close.
y'all.
I think it's just on the notice is the only thing that we have left to discuss.
Okay.
They can do that individually.
Okay. All right. All right, councils. So we all have homework?
Homework.
Lots of homework? All right, guys. So this is the workshop. I was still need a motion and a second to adjourn from the workshop. Motion on the floor, Councilman Davis to adjourn for the evening.
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second? Councilman Warwick, seconds. All in favor of adjournment? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is unanimous. The time is 6:32. Thank you so much.
Greg,
Yeah.
together this map.
It's a lot to take.
We all have the original.
Now, this is, I can't wait to really get
We've
going on
got,
this.
we've got these